Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk, our rebranded one-cast show. I'm your host, Kyle Ambrosi, and with me is
David Hobbs,
my friend David, who will be. This is his first appearance on one of our shows, but he'll be a podcast regular, hopefully.
I'm also your faithful editor as well.
He's our really bad editor who doesn't even listen to our podcasts and makes lots of mistakes.
I've listened to like 2 of them.
Okay, well, your job is to listen to all of them, so...
I don't have time for that.
Anyways, you have a lot of time now, so you should be listening to all of them. This week, we're going to talk about travel, because David and I are travel partners. We're companions. We're partners.
Travel buddies.
We're married. And
apparently, I didn't know about this.
we got married in Nevada.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. So, I've been fortunate enough in my childhood and later years to travel almost every year. I've gone somewhere. It started maybe when I was 11. I went to space camp, and pretty much that's in Huntsville, Alabama. And all you do is, as a kid, it's kind of like taking an extended astronomy class and also like space program class. And for a week, you're in this camp with a bunch of other spacey kids. Literally spacey. They're just weird. And, you go around with your specific teacher, and they talk about this early space program, and they talk about the modern space program and space in general, like our solar system and all that fun stuff. And at the end of the week, you're assigned like a job on the space shuttle, because this is around the time the space shuttle was still the program going on. And I was the commander, and I got to fly and they had a full-ass mock-up of this space shuttle. It was literally life-sized. The cockpit was life-sized, and you had a booklet full of what all the buttons do and when you're supposed to press all these buttons and follow a mission schedule, and it was very stressful for a 12-year-old. It was horrifying. And I had my co-pilot, and I had to fucking actually land the space shuttle back on the runway. I landed it without landing legs. Oh, but only the back ones. I had the front one. So I skidded across the runway and hit trucks. No, it was an accident. I just forgot to put them down. I didn't know what light was on for anything. But I went there for 2 years. Not straight. There was a good year break in between for a week.
Living out in the parking lot.
Yeah, but the second time I went, I went to what was it was called the Air Force Challenge. And pretty much it was like the more military side of things. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm glad I've told you this story before. It was an accident. I was supposed to be doing the Space Academy, which is like the next level up, and they're like, "Oh, it's full, and we made a mistake, so we have these two available." It was like the engineering one and the Air Force Challenge. But the only reason I picked Air Force Challenge is because I knew somebody in that class from last year. I was like, "Oh, well, I know." I think his code name. I don't remember his real name. Might have been Jake or something, but his code name was Wolf. And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I remember him. I'll do the Air Force Challenge with him." And so
he sounds like a really cool kid.
His code name was Wolf, so he was pretty fucking swag, let me tell you.
Getting all the Air Force bitches.
Oh yeah, dude.
Was there a lot of girls there?
There were quite a few, yeah. Especially in the Air Force Challenge.
Was it mostly men or guys though?
I wouldn't say it was. It was pretty equal.
Because you think with that kind of you'd attract mostly kind of nerdy guys, I assume.
Well, for the space camp one, definitely. It was like all boys and 2 girls out of a maybe 15-person class per teacher. But the Air Force Challenge was fucking way cooler, which is weird because I'm not a military guy at all. Obviously I support our troops, but I would never volunteer to do that shit. And this was so much fun. I mean, pretty much okay, first off, we were assigned code names, which is fucking cool. You felt like you were in a movie. My code name was Van Gogh because I was an artist.
Yeah, okay.
I was at the time. I still am. If you'll notice from our cover art, I do all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, so I was Van Gogh. There was Wolf, and there was a bunch of. I have the mission patch actually with all of our real names. I don't know.
Don't ever show me that.
Dude, it's awesome though.
In public.
I'll show you in private. It's okay.
That's fine.
But yeah, and so we had code names, and we were trained on how to fly fucking airplanes, and so they had a whole room full of mock cockpits for fighter F-15 fighter jets, and we each got our own fucking fighter jet, and it was put into an online simulation game. So it was like playing fucking Tom Clancy's Hawks with a bunch of other people in the room. Yeah. It was really fucking cool.
So it was just like a flight sim on steroids, basically.
Oh yeah, and there was actual dogfights. We did dogfights with each other, and we'd be assigned opposing teams, and we'd have to survive. And it was called the Top Gun Challenge. At the end of the week, we had an actual like ranked challenge on who was gonna like fucking win. And there was also, we did a few missions in that simulation, and one of them I remember, I was the only person who could land a plane in the entire class of like 20 kids. I was the only one, and so they assigned me to fly Air Force One.
Of course, yeah. Because it's pretty crucial.
You have to land that fucking plane,
especially the plane of the president.
And I fucking landed that shit. You bet your ass I did.
The bead of sweat is dripping down.
I was like,
14-year-old Kyle's.
And the cool thing was, it actually accounted for the physics of these planes. So like, flying a fighter jet is fucking nimble, right? You're zooming around, yeah. That plane, the Air Force One, not nimble at all, and you're like fucking cranking that shit, and you're like hardly turning. So it was a really different flight experience. But we also did missions where we're like in-person missions, and we had to run around in forests and like be stealthy. There was one specific mission where there was a downed jet, and we had to go recover the intel files from this person. And there was an actor, he was an actor. He was one of the teachers there, and he was like pretending like he'd like been shot down or something. He gave us like some files. We had to like fucking sneak through the woods and not get caught by the enemy, which were other teachers. And we were 13, and we're running through the woods. And obviously, I'm sure we weren't actually stealthy at all, but like in the moment when you're 13, you're like, I can't step on any leaves or they'll hear us. And then we did a mission where we had to army crawl through the woods at night, and they made us do like natural night vision where we cover our eyes for like, I think it was like a couple minutes, yeah. And we had to army crawl through the woods, and if like there were supervisors walking around with flashlights, and if they flashed you with a flashlight and you didn't put your head down, you were caught, and then they'd capture you.
Okay, yeah, sure.
It was insane, but
sounds pretty dope. If I was 13, I would have done that.
I know, right? And there was another mission where we had to walk through the entire campus and plant bombs and not get caught. And the way you killed people was you would karate chop them on the neck, and then they would pretend to be dead.
Like a school campus, like
yeah, it was it was the campus of the academy.
Shooter?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't like a fucking simulation like, we're bombing a school. No, it's just like we're in enemy territory and we have to drop bombs on their like satellites or whatever.
Sure. Huh.
It was fucking cool.
It sounds cool. I wish I would have done something like that when I was little. I just like, I guess when I was that young, I was mostly just taking trips with my parents. Like we had a camper,
yeah,
a big trailer, so we would go camping in that. And then obviously I'm a Boy Scout, and so during that time I was just.
Are you an Eagle Scout or no?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm an Eagle Scout. During that time, I was just starting to get into like actual camping with the Boy Scouts. I think when I was in Cub Scouts, which if anybody doesn't know, that's the level down from Boy Scouts, kind of where you get all of these elementary schoolers and nobody really knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
it's kind of all just like you're trying.
Cub Scouts is I was in there for a minute and it was bad.
And there were requirements, and you could get pins instead of badges. But no matter what, if you were in 4th grade, you were in one level, and then when you became a 5th grader, you went up to the next level.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you had to work at anything. But then Boy Scouts came around, and we did a lot of campouts, and so you'd have anywhere from like. There was a cutoff where I think it was like around 12, but it was pretty much once you went from 8th grade to freshman year, or when you went from 5th grade to 6th grade, you had all of this crossover. So you had a very wide range of kids. So you had these like little 12 and 13-year-old prepubescent like kids, and then you had like 17 and 18-year-old like teenagers, basically, like adults. And you had to find things that were interesting to everybody. And so what we would do is whenever we would go on weekend campouts and stuff like that, Saturday night was always, reserved for capture the flag.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
In the middle of the dark. And so you would just have this, maybe 6 or 7 guys on a team. You'd have 2 teams. And we would have lines, whether that was like roads or borders or anything like that.
Yeah.
And you would have to play. And some people took it quite seriously, others did not.
It's like flag football. Yeah.
I did not like sitting out in the middle of the woods in the dark very much, so I didn't, I feel like now I would have a lot more fun.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, that was pretty much my childhood. That's what I did, was we went on those kind of campouts. I went on a couple of longer trips with my parents. We went out to Montana. We went out to Yellowstone one time.
Yeah, I did that too.
Yeah,
I think when I was 14.
We did a Upper Peninsula trip. We spent like a week and a half, 2 weeks, just going from one end of the Upper Peninsula to the other. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that too. We did a trip to Washington D.C. and
Never been there.
Maryland and everything like that. It's interesting. I think if you're gonna go, you should go, but kind of be prepared for what you'd expect, because it's Washington D.C. is pretty much like the biggest tourist trap there is compared to New York.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go there, you're pretty much surrounded by tourists, and you're doing all of the stuff that you do in Washington D.C., where you go see all the Capitol buildings,
Yeah.
you go to all the museums, and you go see like all of the famous stuff that they have around Washington D.C. But you're surrounded by everybody in board shorts and like Hawaiian shirts, and they all have cameras around their necks, and you can just kind of tell the entire environment you're in.
Yeah.
I much prefer going camping and going on trips where you're not surrounded by the tourist traps, where you actually get to go experience what it's like to live in these kinds of areas, kind of experience what it's like to be in these situations and just surround yourself.
I think I definitely enjoy nature a lot, but I still do prefer city life and exploring new cities. I think my first road trip ever, well, that's not true. I had a lot of road trips. One of the first ones I do remember was going to Montana, or no, it was Missouri. My bad. And it was in the middle of the winter, and we were going to visit. I don't even know why we were visiting her, but it was like my great aunt, and she was like 80 at the time. I don't know. I heard stories that she used to feed bears. I don't fucking know. She's crazy. And the only thing I remember, I was like 3 when we did that, was throwing up all over myself in the car, and my dad had to carry me out of the car into like 2 feet of snow, and he tried to put me down, and then I fell 2 feet into the snow, and he couldn't see me anymore because I was a baby. I was like 3, and he started panicking. I don't remember that happening, but I do remember being told that story many times.
Okay.
That was a beautiful road trip, though. I just remember like all the pine trees and the fucking snow, and like being in this fucking wood cabin, and it was really weird. I don't remember my great aunt at all, but I think a couple years after that, I went to Florida with my brother and my grandpa and my grandma and my aunt, who was like 10 years older than me, so she was like fucking 15 or something. And I was really young, so I don't remember a lot of that road trip, but I remember there was like a hurricane scare when we were there, and that was really cool to a 5-year-old. I didn't know the danger of it. I was like, oh, this guy's getting really fucking great.
We might die.
I didn't know we were gonna die, but my greatest memory from that road trip, obviously we went to Disneyland or whatever. I don't remember that at all, but my favorite memory from that road trip was I was on the dock because we were at a hotel on the ocean, and I was fishing with my grandma, and I was weak as shit, and so I'm kind of just like sitting there enjoying the night. And I don't know if this was the same night or a different night, but at one point the sun was setting, and I was looking around it, 'cause I don't look at the sun, obviously. I was looking around, I was looking at this beautiful sunset on the ocean, just breathing it in, and all of a sudden I see this great green ball of fire just fly through the sky. Most beautiful shooting star I've ever seen in my life. And I'm sure as I got older, I exaggerated that memory a lot, but I do remember that it was green, which was very odd. I assume it was because of the atmospheric and the refraction of the light on the atmosphere. But and then sometime between the week I was there, I caught the biggest catfish ever. And my grandpa loves to tell that story because, my grandson caught a fucking fish. I fucking hate fishing and all that shit. And it was about a foot long, this catfish. Yeah. I had to have my grandma help me fish it out because I was 5. I was weak as shit.
I was trying to figure out why you being weak as shit pertained to you seeing a shooting star. Like,
if I was going to tell the catfish story, and I didn't know which one to tell first.
Like, interesting.
So I was weak as shit, and I saw this star. It was crazy. Yeah. But
I'm just a pussy, but yeah, dude, I don't know. Some of my greatest memories are traveling with my family. I think.
Definitely.
When you can. Because it takes everybody out of like whatever they're dealing with, like with work and like just life and everything. You just pretty much get to put.
As a 5-year-old, life was really stressful.
Yeah, like diapers and crap.
Diapers at 5? Your problem, baby.
And you just kind of get to take whatever issues you have and just kind of throw them away for a little while.
Yeah.
Until you get back, and then you pretty much have to walk back in your life. That's the most depressing part of traveling, is when you get back.
Oh, definitely. I remember the first time I went to California was with my grandpa in 2015. And because I hadn't been on a road trip in a long time, because like I know it wasn't the last road trip I went on.
You were scarred from your catfish experience.
Well, no, because I went to Alabama twice when I was 12 and 13.
So you were scarred by Alabama.
I was scarred from Alabama. Trust me, I was scarred from Alabama. No offense to the South, scarring. But Alabama is whack as shit.
All the offense to the South.
All offense to Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama.
And So a couple years after that, I went on another road trip with my grandpa this time, and he bought a new Jeep specifically for this, and he also bought me a laptop, which I'm using right now. It's a very nice laptop. And I was going to California, and it was a 3-week road trip. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that my grandpa's a very abrasive person. I love him a lot, obviously, but he can be a lot to handle. And he likes to do things his way. He doesn't like to consider that there might be other options that I would want to do. And so the first week and a half were okay. I'll just say that as the trip went on longer, the more moody we got with each other and began to get very feisty at the end. But the first week was great. It's just driving to California, and he likes to take his time and see everything. He's that kind of traveler, and that's okay, especially when you're on a road trip. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. Enjoy everything. Every state you go to, you do one thing there, and on an American road trip at least, And I don't really remember much of going to California. All I do remember is that this is at the time I started talking to my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I started texting her, and every morning I'd wake up, I'd send her a Snapchat of, like, where I was that day with, like, a heart around it. She didn't like me at the time, so it was just me being a wimpy boy. But I do remember a lot of that.
Is that our theme for this talk show, is how wimpy you are and how weak?
Pretty much, yeah. This is actually my self-deprecation episode. You thought it was about travel, but it's not.
I figured it was going to come up eventually.
But once we got to California, man, my life changed. I love California. We took the south route. No, we took the north route there, and the south route back. I think it was the opposite of what we did on our road trip, which we'll get to. But so our first stop was San Francisco. My grandpa was in the Vietnam War, and he had a buddy there who, they were obviously very close, and he was writing letters to his buddy's sister on his buddy's recommendation. It wasn't just weird like that. And they became really close friends, the sister and my grandpa. Well, my grandpa's friend passed away in the war, and he lost contact with the sister. But I guess as he retired, he started to kind of like want to, pick up where he left off on lots of things. He went back to Vietnam a couple years after our California trip. But he, the preface to our California trip with my grandpa was that he wanted to meet back up with his buddy's sister and kind of get some closure for it, because he never talked to her after his buddy died. And they got in contact through email. Like, he went on, my dad helped him a lot with this. It was like detective work to find if this girl was still alive, if she was still out there, where she was now. Yeah, and luckily everything aligned, and they were like, we're going to meet up in California. I'm going to drive out there with my grandson. It's going to be great. And so our first stop where she lived was a San Francisco suburb, and she was going to show us around San Francisco. And we were there for 4 days, and, I got to meet this girl. Her name was Gloria. And we hung out with her and her older sister, who was hilarious, like this old woman. I think her older sister was like 80 or 90, but she was like 60 or 70. And, dude, this old lady was funny as hell. But, yeah, like, of course my grandpa wanted to do all the touristy shit, and I didn't. So the first 2 days were us doing all the touristy stuff, like going to Fisherman's Wharf. I don't know if you and I did that, because I fucking hated it. Yeah, I hated that place.
I think that we specifically avoided it.
I'm pretty sure I did, because I hate it so much. But, we did all that touristy shit, and we went to see Muir Woods, which was life-changing for me. It was so beautiful seeing these trees that are hundreds of feet tall, hundreds of years old, maybe I think 1,000 years old. And you just feel so insignificant, and you take life in your mind. You're like, none of my problems really matter. Nothing is set in stone, like, it's just, I'm not 1,000 years old, and I never will be. Like, so I can't waste my life thinking about meaningless things.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that would later on become the premise for our
trip, you and I, yeah,
to focus on trying to get out to Muir Woods.
Yeah, but so I saw all of that fun stuff, and I think the third and fourth day I took to myself to be alone after Muir Woods. I walked around San Francisco by myself.
You were a changed man.
I was a changed man. I was 16 at the time. I was ready to tackle anything, and I met up with also some of my dad's friends and my friends as well, and he took me out to sushi, and like there's an anime cafe we went to, and I'm not even partial to anime, but it was fun to be there.
Well, if you're not, how's your grandpa feel about it?
He loves it. No, he didn't take my grandpa to this cafe. It was just me.
I was about to say.
No, fuck no. But we San Francisco was great. Just super hilly, and he has a stick shift, so we were just driving around. It was amazing to watch. But
I think that's a good transition into kind of our trip and what we did. I think I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, so David and I in 2017 went to California as well. It was at a time where I was in a rough patch. The girl I mentioned on my first road trip to California, we had just broken up after a year and a half, and I was feeling really bad about it. And so in I think we started talking about it in April or May.
Then, yeah.
So April 2017, I was still with her at the time, but it was on its way out, and it was bad. And I was like, I need to get away. I need to do something with my summer. Like, I'm going to be 18 this summer, and I don't want to just work. This is, the end of high school, and they usually say, that's when you just hop into work life and fucking degrade, you get depressed, and it's just okay, this is life now. I didn't want to fall into that trap. I wanted to do something with my summer. Yeah. And so I was at the coffee shop with David, and we were talking, just shooting the shit, and he's like, I've never seen the redwood trees. I'd really love to see them. I'm like, well, actually, I've been to California before, and I've seen them, and they are really spectacular. And we just started talking about it and whatever. And I think it started as a joke, we should totally go see them, because I had just gotten a new car at that point. I had my Impala.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it's still out there, just not mine anymore. But it's the only car I've touched that hasn't blown up yet. It'll get there. Almost. But, I was like, I have a great new car, and we could totally go do this. I have a decent job now where I make quite a bit of money, and I don't have to spend it on anything. I live with my parents, and
I was pretty much in the same boat. I almost felt the same way, because this was my first summer back from college, and my first summer out of high school. I wasn't able to do any sort of road trip. I wasn't able to go anywhere. I didn't really do anything for spring break either, and that really kind of bummed me out, because that's really the thing that you do at the end of high school.
Oh, yeah. You go all out.
Yeah. You go all out, and you go out somewhere and everything. And so I felt like I had almost missed out on that, and this trip was a good opportunity for me and Kyle to kind of develop our friendship a little bit more.
Yeah, because we weren't even really that close up until California.
No, and I think it did a really good job with that, and I feel like it really kind of opened my eyes to all that the United States has to offer.
Definitely.
That was really the main thing that I got out of the trip, was just seeing all of the different areas of the United States, getting to absorb all these
different people, different areas, people. Definitely.
I have, like I said, I've gone out and traveled in the United States, but one of the things I really enjoyed about our trip was we got to spend a little bit more time in the South. I hadn't really spent that much time on the southwestern, mostly the western side of the United States. We did take several trips, me and my family, out to Florida to visit my grandparents and stuff like that, but we really, other than our Yellowstone trip, we hadn't really ever traveled that far out.
Yeah.
And it was just, I had never been in the desert before. I had never seen
the desert was bad, but yeah.
But I think that's all part of the experience. I think
no, definitely.
Looking back on it,
because the thing I enjoy most about this trip was the fact that I got to be, for the most part, on my own. Yeah. You were there, obviously, but we're both inexperienced travelers by ourselves.
Independency.
Yeah, you and I have only ever gone on road trips with our family, and obviously because we were kids, and I was freshly 18 by the time I was 2 months 18 by the time we went on our road trip, and I was ready to tackle the world, and this was really kind of a wake up call to be like, okay, you're on your own now, and you're not powerful, you're not invincible.
For a trip for two 18-year-olds going out across the United States, over 4,000 miles, I think.
It was 7,000.
Yeah, so I think for all the things that could have gone wrong,
we did pretty good.
Pretty well.
I mean, well, there were. So let's talk about some of the bad things that happened on that trip. Bottoming out. We bottomed out my car in, was it Colorado?
Yeah, well, there was. We tried to get out to some buttes, some
butts. Yeah.
I think we were in. I don't remember what state we were in, but we were trying to get out into this prairie land.
Oh, dude, I'm thinking of a completely different story. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure that was Yeah, I don't remember what it was either. It was one of those Great Plains states.
Yeah, it was one of the Great Plains states. They're all the same to me.
Like
But
Oklahoma or something. I don't know.
we had decided we wanted to try to go down this 2-track to try to get out to these buttes, and
Yeah, because we wanted to get as close as we could to
Yeah.
them before we had to get out and walk, because it was a long fucking walk. And there was no road leading up to these things. And I was like, well, like he said, there was a 2-track there.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, my car's kind of higher than my last one, so I think
what
it can
we
make
didn't
it.
realize was it wasn't quite high enough to get
No,
the
I
grass
got
in
about
the
like
middle.
0.1 mile into it, and it just started
rubbing
scraping.
louder and louder, and we were
Yeah, so I had to
decided
turn around.
yeah.
And
The one that happened in Colorado. I feel like Kyle
so
and
I made a wrong turn in Colorado. We were in the mountains, and I was like, we'd woken up in the morning, had our breakfast and whatever, getting ready to go, and I think we were about like 30 minutes to an hour in after we left the campsite, and I made a wrong turn, and I'm like, oh well, shit. And I saw that there was a driveway. I'm like, okay, I'll just turn around in there. Well, in my haste, I didn't realize that this driveway was actually a fucking gorge and a nice big valley of a driveway. And I made a turn into it.
You made the turn into it perfectly fine. It's just when you turn around and try to get out of it.
No, it was the opposite.
Really?
I'm making the turn in. We realized that I had what sounded like destroyed my gas tank. I don't know how the car even survived the impact. I should have broken both of my front tires, to be honest. But completely fine. And then on the way, I was like, wow, we should take that a little bit slower. And
You really scraped the front end, though. I was surprised we still had
Yeah,
grill in front bumper.
yeah, I was too, because it sounded terrible, but it was completely fine. That car was actually much of a trooper, as much as I give it shit. It
Did
was
not complain whatsoever on the 3,500 mile trip out there and 3,500 mile trip back. So
well, we broke it on the way back. I guarantee that's why it almost blew up. But what else went
well,
I didn't do any cooking, so I appreciate you for that.
I enjoy cooking, honestly. That's one
We
of
did
my-
lots of camping, and
we tried to camp as much as possible because we weren't terribly rich. We had some money
Oh,
saved
yeah.
up, but we were pretty much.
it was cost saving. It was also the experience of nature on a road trip. Like you just have to camp, And we didn't have a fucking camper. It wasn't like luxury. We were. It was just.
I mean, the tent
we had
was
a
fine.
tent.
The weather was great. I mean, when we got up in Colorado, we got some rain, but
That's what a rain fly's for.
yeah,
We're completely
it
fine.
worked fine.
Cooking in the rain, that was bad.
We had I had thought that I had a gas stove that we could use, but for some reason we didn't have any canisters for that stove. And so in my fine, highly intelligent judgment, I decided that it was good if we got it was a stove, but it worked off of those little sterno canisters.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody knows what a sterno canister is, but it's if you've ever been to a buffet at like that's been catered or whatever, you get these little canisters of this gel, this flammable gel that you can light on fire. And whereas it's supposed to keep food warm, if you put a pan close enough to it, you can actually cook food on them. However, if you try to cook any kind of food on it, it's probably going to take maybe 3 or 4 times as long as it would normally take. So,
And it started raining as we were doing this,
so we're about 3,500 feet above what we're normally at.
so it's a lot harder to light a
yeah,
fire.
me and him probably had a lot of headaches. We were kind of breathing a little bit heavy. It was raining. It was about 40 degrees out.
It was
And
nighttime too.
It was nighttime. We had got in with it quite late.
Don't do that.
And we had decided that we wanted to cook some hamburgers, and so me and Kyle,
You
sat
mostly.
there. Yeah,
I sat there with you
with
in
Kyle
solidarity.
complaining about how hungry he was. And
I was
sat there
starving.
for about an hour and a half, 2 hours cooking these hamburgers, until eventually Kyle decided that he was tired enough that he just wanted to go lay down.
Yeah. That was
The
really
biggest,
wet.
I think the biggest thing that we messed up on with our trip at least was trying to make it walk out into the desert.
Yeah, so we did a lot of hiking, which I love. I love hiking.
One of the points of this trip was to try to make it to a lot of national parks. That's one of the
Yeah.
things that we focused on, was trying to get out and see some of our national park land we have.
Because while we're young, we may as well use our limbs, And we.
Well, I still have them.
Well, I still have them. What was our first one? Zion. I think Zion. No, Arches was after Zion.
Or was Zion after? Okay.
Arches was after.
We went to both of them though, and when we were in Arches, we decided that we were going to take the hike out to Delicate Arch.
Which is 3 square mile or 3 round trip,
Yeah,
3 miles.
3 miles round trip, which doesn't sound terrible, but
It was like
110 degree
yeah.
heat. Most of it was on an incline on our way out there.
All of it was
And me and Kyle decided that we were good, even though
We didn't need water.
that we didn't need water. Me and him.
I've
pretty
made
much
this
had
mistake before.
A half a bottle of water.
I do it a
each.
lot.
And even though there was a park ranger standing right there,
You had a
suggesting-
full bottle. I had half.
No, I didn't. even though there was a park ranger at the beginning of this trail suggesting that we bring at least a liter of water per person, we decided that me and Kyle were fine. We didn't need any more.
We're invincible.
And so I was very concerned for Kyle's life that
day. I'm chubbier than most people. I'm not overweight, but I'm on the border. Or I was closer to the border on that road trip than I am now. And I don't have good lungs. So going up a hill for about an hour in blistering heat was the worst idea ever, and especially with no water.
There was a lot of breaks.
There was a lot of breaks, and when we got to the top, I kind of just like laid down.
Yeah, I mean,
you had to pick me up.
The arch was nice.
The arch was beautiful.
I love the view. I love the arch. It's some of my favorite trips. That was one of our favorite little outings we went on, and that was the favorite pictures that I was able to take. On the trip.
We got some really good pictures.
But
I'm thinking I'm going to put some of those pictures in the video.
You can put any of the. I have a couple that I can send you.
Okay.
Well. I think in the moment, both me and Kyle were very hot, very tired, and we didn't really
get to appreciate as much.
Yeah, we didn't.
Looking back on it,
yeah,
though, definitely.
But I think it was a learning experience.
I also didn't bring water to Muir Woods.
No.
And in California, so like it's hot there too.
We got. I like to say that we pretty much ran the gamut on seeing all of the different environments and ecosystems.
Oh, definitely. We saw like practically jungle, right?
Yeah.
Like Muir Woods is.
We have a decent amount of hardwood pine and like pinewood forest up here in Michigan, so we're pretty much used to that. But as soon as we left Michigan, we got to see the Great Plains, the Corn Belt, the breadbasket, which was amazing for about 2 hours.
It was amazing for like 20 minutes because I've seen it like 5 times.
And then, we got to sit and stare at cornfields for about 2 days of driving. We got out of that.
You hit mountains.
It started getting very mountainous. We got to see Colorado. We got to drive through the mountains through there. We got to see some wildfires. I think
the mountains might be. Yeah, we did see wildfires.
Yeah.
The mountains are my favorite environment. I just love. I mean, think about the creation of mountains. Like, it's just the earth pushing against itself, and it's just spectacular. Like, these are monuments that have been naturally constructed over millions of years. It's it's insane.
And just how nature can erode those down into these huge just monoliths
plateaus. We saw a lot of plateaus and buttes.
It was beautiful. I developed an appreciation for desert environments that I never thought I would have, because up until this point I hadn't gotten to see. It's different seeing it in a postcard or a picture or a TV show or something like that, and then actually being able to go out and be in these kinds of environments and just seeing how hospitable they are. And you'd think, seeing in a hospitable environment like that, you wouldn't want to spend any time in there, but there's almost this.
It's serene.
And serenity. There's just this clarity in these environments where anything that you see
because they're untouched.
Exactly.
Like, you'll see a person here and there.
But just anything in those areas, if something wants to survive in that area, it has to survive. It has to adapt and change to its environment, or else it's not going to live for very long.
And doing this road trip without parents or family,
without a plan, really, we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, we planned where we were going to go, but
we had a good idea of what we wanted to see and where we wanted to kind of stop. But
it was impromptu.
That fell apart quickly.
Oh yeah, but for the better.
Yeah, that's how I wanted the trip to be. I didn't want it to be planned, because I've been on plenty of family road trips where we tried. It's just too regimented. Every single day, trying to figure out what we wanted to do, and I've met other families that it's much worse than what I had, but I still feel that the best way to get a good idea of where you're at is to basically just walk around and get lost. I
feel like people just panic, like they overthink it too much and start to panic about that. Like, they just can't go with the flow, and that's something that really helped me calm down as a person, was on that trip going with the flow and kind of just realizing that things don't have to be planned to be good.
Well, I think a lot of people start to stress out and get anxious when they, like you said, they don't know where they're going to stop, or they might not have reservations, they might not have a plan or something like that. But when you're able to use what we had and kind of just be able to be out there and in the moment, it just makes it fun.
I mean, yeah, we slept in the Impala outside of Yellowstone,
Yeah, we did what we had to do. I think in retrospect, we may have been able to plan it a little bit better and maybe thought through what we wanted to do, because there's obviously some things that I would have wanted to do and other things I wouldn't have.
Like, we could have stayed. We ended up cutting the trip 3 days short.
Yeah, it was.
We could have stayed in Yellowstone, but I also ran out of money at the last day.
Yeah, that was one of the big shortcomings of the trip. I would have loved to spend a lot more time out there, but we didn't realize how expensive it was going to be, and for how amazing
I
California
mean, we
is.
had what you had $1,400 and I had
I had
$1,000.
about $1,500, yeah.
Yeah, and we still ran out.
Hey, dude, when you're living on the road like that, paying for as much gas as we were.
Oh yeah, the Impala was a gas guzzler for
Not
sure.
the worst, but yeah.
Not the worst. I mean, it pulled what 550. I think was the most I got out of it. We ran out of gas in the desert. We almost ran out of gas in the desert. I completely forgot about that. We were driving down the Mojave, the Mojave Desert, and I was on E, and my car dings. And usually that means I got about 40 miles left.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ooh, we're cutting it close.
Driving
It was
through
like 100 miles to the next gas station. I'm like, dude, we're fucked. We're gonna run out of gas in the desert and die.
If there was any time in that period I was
I did that
stressed out,
twice.
it probably would have been like the worst. when I
We
was-
almost ran out of gas twice. With the second time we were in California in the mountains. I think we were leaving California.
Yeah.
And I was like, we don't need gas yet. Again, like every 30 minutes goes by and you're just like, I hope there's a gas station soon. Especially in the fucking desert because you can actually
It's scary,
die.
because
Yeah.
when you're like, if you're in the woods or something like that, you run out of gas. Sure. Yeah, or you're on like a highway or something. There's going to be people passing by.
Definitely.
But in the middle of the desert, when it's like
There's
100 degrees
nobody
out,
there.
you may not see somebody for maybe 20 minutes, maybe 5 hours. You never know.
Yeah.
So when you're
And they're not going to be
stranded-
prepared either. Like, they're not going to have just a fucking full tank of gas in there, like a little gas
or
can.
like a gas can or something like that. It's
No.
not like you want to walk anywhere to get gas.
No, you'll die.
You don't know if it's going to be.
We didn't have
100
fucking
miles.
water. Like, we weren't prepared.
No, I think that
And gas out there is expensive too. It was
a lot
$4.
more expensive than I would have thought. So yeah, anybody who is planning on a road trip, make sure that you have at least like $500 more than you think you probably need.
Yeah.
Or at least I'd say at least another grand. Because if you want to see everything and kind of have a vacation, I think we could have been a little bit more frugal with our spending habits
Definitely.
and stuff like that. We kind of it
We
was a
we
vacation.
well, I think what we spent most of our money on was food. We ate out all okay. We almost ate out every night except for when we were camping,
Yeah.
and we did waste a little bit of food camping too, because we just left it in the cooler.
Yeah,
But
that's the other thing. We kind of ran out of ice in our cooler too, which
a
sucks,
lot.
but
We did
it
that a lot.
happens.
It was just soggy meat. But
It was a fun trip, though. I one of the things that I often like to remind myself is that there's two different types of fun in this world, where there's short
Sex and drugs.
Yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But
That's three.
there's two different types of fun in this world. There's short-term fun and there's long-term fun. And so you can get short-term fun from a lot of different things right? in your everyday life. I like the best analogy I think of is a roller coaster, where you're on a roller coaster for maybe like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You get off. That was fun. You get to sit there and you get to appreciate that for what it's worth at face value. But after your trip, you don't think about that roller coaster very much.
Yeah.
Versus long-term fun, which more often than not, it may be fun at that time, but it often takes the form of being challenging or being stressful or being anxious or being different, to where it puts you in a completely different mindset. And even if you may not be having fun in the moment, when you get to look back on it, that's when you start to appreciate long-term fun. Because you
Yeah.
get to say,
Yeah.
yeah, we may have been in the middle of the desert trying to walk out to this arch with no water whatsoever.
or running out of gas in a different
Or
desert.
running out of gas in a different desert. Or, sleeping out in a tent in the middle
the
of
rain.
nowhere, in the rain or something like that.
Yeah.
But when you look back on it, you say, that was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
you can say, I would not change that, and I would not change what happened to us because that's an experience.
Yeah.
And when you can look back on things like that, that's when because roller coasters are fun, and I love going on roller coasters, but you don't think about the roller coasters that you've been on. You think about those times when you've been challenged or you've been tried, and you get to think back on it and go, yeah, that really sucked in the moment, but man, that was a
It taught me
situation.
something.
Yeah, you get to
Yeah.
laugh about it, you get to talk about it. That's the thing that I've learned the most from this trip, is the long-term fun.
Yeah. And we're doing it again this summer. Hopefully, I mean, we didn't talk about it, and we're not going to get into detail on this show, but on the podcast, we're going to talk about David just totaled his car.
Yes, he did.
And, that's expensive. I just had to buy a new car as well,
Yeah.
and that's expensive. But we're going to try with Clay. We're going to try to go out to New York this summer, which is obviously going to be a lot cheaper. It's going to be a one-day road trip, and we're going to stay
One
like
day out
3
there, yeah.
days
Yeah.
in New York.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit closer, and maybe you guys will get to see a New York edition podcast, possibly.
Yeah, we might try to film because we're going to be there on a Friday,
Yeah.
so we're gonna try to do one in New York, and talk about the experiences we're having at the moment there. But, that's because I'm also trying to move out this summer.
Exactly.
There's a lot of stuff going on this summer.
Trying, but I'd love to still try to get out there.
Oh, yeah, I mean, no matter what, I think that's what... Because, the thing about being young is that, if you don't have kids and you're young, don't waste your time working. Honestly, take a week off. Try your hardest to take a week off. I know sometimes your employers won't let you.
It doesn't even have to be a week, maybe a weekend. But
yeah, go out and travel. Even if it's 2 hours up north, or if you're in the south, 2 hours anywhere outside of your town. Like, go to a lake for a weekend. Go camping for a weekend. Do something. Live your life. Have fun.
Break the monotony.
Yeah, definitely. 100% break the monotony.
It can get because people don't understand. You can get in a very... you can get used to your environment. You can get very okay with the position that you're in.
But it brings you down.
Exactly.
It makes you sad.
You don't realize it. Some people don't realize it. But you can, as it wears on you, and it takes an effect. Very minute, but over time, when you're going to a job day in and day out, when you don't have something to look forward to, when you don't break that cycle and get out of your comfort zone or something like that, it gets very depressing, and you get this feeling like you're in a jail cell, like you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the most valuable thing that you have right now is time, because you can make as much money as you want, you can get as much fame and respect as you want, but time is something that you cannot buy. It's something you can't steal. It's from somebody. Yeah. It's like sand in your hand that's slowly falling out. You don't have any grasp of it. And that's the issue, is people don't understand how valuable their time is until it's gone.
And they waste it all working.
Exactly.
Or,
and
doing things they won't necessarily appreciate further down the line. The short-term fun.
I understand people who are trying to make a living, and I understand everybody might not have the capabilities of going out on a trip or something like that. But you don't have to take a week and a half, 2 week trip out to California.
Or even a road trip. Like, hop on a bike, take a walk. If you can't afford, and there's literally no means for you to go travel even a couple hours, take a day for yourself, just one day, to go on a walk, to go on a bike ride, to experience a different environment than your work or your job or your usual hangout. Go try something new. And that's something I was told just the other week is, when things are rough, take a day to yourself and do things that make you happy. Yeah. Don't do things that make other people happy. Yeah. And with that, I'm going to end the show. I want to thank David for being on.
Oh, thank you.
And, I hope you're on a lot more. I had a great time talking.
Well, I'll be on tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be around a little bit more.
For some coffee talks. Huh?
I don't think the fans will like me, though.
I don't know, man. You got that voice. He's the voice. But if you like our video, like and subscribe. We need you.
Desperately.
Even though this is a hobby, we still like to have validation.
Yeah,
so
it's always good to get feedback.
Definitely. Yeah, and leave a comment if you want to tell us we suck. Or that we're great. And that you like David's voice.
Every single one of you.
So.
Except for you, Todd.
Fuck you, Todd.